It's portable. It's plastic. It goes by many names. It's the Penncrest 6520 cassette recorder. And it's olive green. I know this isn't my typical fare when it comes to video topics, but I found this at a recent estate sale and I kind of had to buy it because, as it turns out, there's something secret hiding under the hood. Well, that, and it was only $2. So today, I'm going to show you what stood out to me about it. Okay, before we start the video, I just want to apologize to everybody for my absence for a couple of months. We kind of got hosed on a real estate deal, which I think you guys have seen me post about, maybe not. It's kind of hard to describe, and it's a lot of details that I'd rather not go into right here. I'll put a little link in the description so you can go to when the video actually starts. But this was kind of a dumpster fire. But we managed to finally find a house after selling our other place. It was craziness from the very beginning to we lost out on a deal. We had some really sketchy people who were trying to do some, what I'm pretty sure was illegal stuff with respect to how they were handling their end of the real estate deal. We had to threaten to get lawyers involved to try to get money back out of it that they took from us. It was a whole thing. And so if you guys want to hear that whole story, I can give the whole story. It's very, very long, very complicated, and everything that possibly could have gone wrong went wrong in some way or another. Fortunately, here we are. We got the house, a different place, but we got someplace, and we've been spending the last couple of weeks trying to fix it up, trying to get settled, trying to get ourselves just to where everything was usable, make the kitchen usable, make the bathrooms usable, have couches and furniture and a livable space. Just this last weekend, I managed to get the studio mostly built. Behind the camera, what you guys cannot see is still a disaster. There's boxes piled up. There's a reel-to-reel machine. I don't even know if it works, just sitting there on the floor. There's things all over the place, and it's kind of wild right now. So thank goodness that everything worked out and we're back able to make videos again, but it's been crazy. So that all said, let's get back to the video that I wrote a script for in, I think, October. So this is the Penncrest 6520 portable cassette recorder. Penncrest, for those who don't know, was one of the in-house brands of JCPenny from 1963 until 1983. Another notable one was Modular Component Systems, or MCS, which released quite a few neat-looking pieces during its run, like the Model 3275 in 1979, for example. Most in-house brands don't manufacture everything that they sell. Often, they take a piece of equipment made by another company and either slap their logo on it with a different model number and package it just like that, or they buy just the internals and stick a custom case on it so that it looks a little bit different. That's what they've done here. This cassette recorder is a rebranded Panasonic RQ204S with a different shell. That's something that we've seen with several things that I've shown on this channel in the past. My favorite example being the realistic TR3000 reel-to-reel, which is basically a TAC machine with a different haircut and shoes. Interestingly, this tape recorder isn't exclusive to Panasonic and Penncrest. I found it labeled as a Bradford 96461, a realistic CTR6, and Concord F51, just to name a few. There were others as well. But the fact that it's a Panasonic is what struck me as interesting. I like weird old Panasonic stuff, so I took a flyer on this thing, and it turns out it actually still works great for having lived in a dusty old garage for 40-something plus probably years, and it's really easy to use. The door on the left is where the tape goes. It just lifts open and it's held up by a spring. You have a little mirrored bit to make it easier to see the progress of the tape as it plays, and even a mechanism to detect write protection slots so that you don't accidentally record over something that you shouldn't. This little black piece is the tape eject mechanism, which is operated by this little lever labeled up. The tape goes in with the open end facing forward and just clicks down into place. Once the door is closed, you can see the cassette through the little window. To remove it, you open the door and press the up lever. Be gentle here, it can pop out kind of aggressively, but we're going to go ahead and put it back in because I want to show it playing. This big knob, lever, selector, whatever you want to call it, is the transport control. You have rewind, stop, play, and fast forward. It's all mechanical linkage too, so when you turn it, it makes a really satisfying clunk. Next to the transport control is the little red record button. I'll show you how that works in a minute when I do the demo. On the front is a dial for the volume. There are no other controls on this unit. It's very simple. There's no built-in microphone, not even a tape counter. What it does have is a 4-inch speaker behind this little grill here. We'll look at that when I open it up. If we look on the right, there are 4 jacks labeled mic, remote, DC 9 volt, and monitor. The remote and mic ports work in tandem with a microphone that Penncrest sold separately, and I couldn't find anywhere in the guy's garage. Fortunately, that's what eBay's for. This is the microphone that would have originally been paired with it. It's the Penncrest 4912. I ordered this one and immediately realized that it should have had its own little stand, which this one doesn't. I would have liked to have had that too, but by the time I realized it, it was too late to cancel the order. The microphone attaches to the ports like this. If you remember back to my Craig 2603 video, the mic can actually act as a remote, so you can start and stop recording without actually touching the cassette machine itself. That functionality is pretty common, surprisingly, on a lot of microphones from this era. And in fact, the mics for both of these machines will work on one another, though I can't speak to whether the impedance of either one matches. I should point out, you can use a microphone that doesn't have a remote start and stop switch. You just lose the remote functionality. The barrel plug is for 9 volts DC. He didn't have a power adapter anywhere in the house that I could find, and it doesn't specify whether it's center positive or center negative anywhere on the unit itself. But I do have this little center positive power supply with adjustable voltage. I turned it way down so that I didn't fry any of the internals and hooked it up and very briefly switched play on and off. That made the take-up cog run the wrong way, which means that the polarity is opposite that of my power supply, center negative. That means that the pin is the negative terminal and the outside ring is the positive. Also take note, that trick only works if the batteries aren't installed, and I strongly recommend you don't do that. It's a really good way to screw something up. The last jack on the end is labeled monitor. It's a standard 1/8-inch audio output jack, but it's monaural, no stereo signal. If you try to plug in a pair of headphones, you'll only hear it out of the left side. The output level of the monitor jack is also controlled by the volume knob in the front. When you plug something in, it does cut the signal to the speaker on the top. That's pretty typical, but I have seen a few of these that don't do that, so it's worth noting. The left side is totally blank, but the back side does have some little molded feet so that the whole unit can be placed upright. Unfortunately, when you do that, all the text is upside down. But it is very stable, which is nice if you're using the remote microphone with the machine on the floor. If we flip it around, there are 2 panels that open. This one's the battery compartment. Let me see if you can guess how many batteries are in here. I'll give you a hint. Fresh batteries are typically 1.5 volts each, and the DC input is 9 volts. That means that there should be 6 batteries in here, because 9 divided by 1.5 is 6. And if we open it up, there are indeed 6 C-cell batteries. It's not a steadfast rule by any means, so take this with a grain of salt from the Shire.
It's the best salt in all the Shire.
But if you find yourself with something like this that requires a DC input and the label is worn off or missing and you don't know the input voltage, you can often figure it out by counting the number of batteries and multiplying it by 1.5. If nothing else, that'll help you figure out which wall wart goes with it. I've had to use that trick more than once at a thrift store because they keep the cords in a separate drawer with 50 other cords. Now, I spent quite a bit of time looking online for other versions of this thing that were for sale with all of their original parts, and none of them seemed to come with a power adapter. Penncrest did sell a power supply with variable voltage that could have been used with this, but you would have had to buy it separately. That was the model 2998, which I also bought because it was less than $10 and I really like a complete set. This is a classy power adapter. It's got faux wood on the top, a variable output voltage switch on the bottom, and a polarity selector. Before attaching it to the tape recorder, I did test it to make sure I wouldn't blow myself or the tape recorder up the moment I plugged it in. Fortunately, the voltage is close enough, so we'll hook it up in a minute. Now, this other larger panel has a little bag in there. This is the original mono earphone that came with this unit. I find these things with units like this pretty often, and they're almost never opened or used. And I think that's partially because they just don't sound that great. But it is cool that it's still here, and I do appreciate the little removable ear clip. Before I open the case up and look at the insides, I want to take a moment to appreciate the fact that all the panels are still accounted for and none of the pieces are broken. I pass on so many really cool things because they're cracked or missing pieces or the writing is scuffed off, and it always bums me out. That's another reason that I was stoked to find this for the price that I paid. To open it up, flip it over and remove the battery panel and the batteries first. The other panel can stay. Then take off this center screw and these two screws on the handle. The back has little clips which will let go if you kind of press right at these little indentations. Those are for a tool, but I'd suggest your finger because it's pretty easy and it won't scratch the plastic. When they're loose, the whole panel will just lift off, but be careful of the battery wires. It's pretty impressive in here if you ask me. The motor is big, it has a pretty hefty flywheel which smooths out the playback significantly, and the belt is still in great shape. And you can see on the back of the speaker, there's the Matsushita logo which confirms that it's Panasonic. While I'm in here, I'll go ahead and hit the volume pot with contact cleaner just for good measure. Let me get this thing put back together real quick and then I'll demo it for you so you can see how it sounds. I'm going to show how it sounds using the mic and the speaker, but then I'm going to try hooking it up to my DAC so that we can hear it under the best circumstances that I can muster, at least with the equipment that I've got. Now that it's back together, I'll set it up to record. First, I insert the blank tape, type 1 because it's only set up for that type. Then I'll hook up the microphone, which only goes in one way. Then let's hook up that power supply. Finally, I press the red record button and flip the switch to play. It's that simple. So this section right here is what the machine sounds like through the microphone, being recorded on the tape and then being played back through the speaker. I'm just going to sync it up in post. This is how it would have sounded most of the time. But let's try something else. This is what it sounds like with the shotgun microphone plugged directly into the microphone port on the tape recorder. Going through my DAC had a weird clicky interference that I didn't like, so instead I'm just going directly from the tape recorder to my audio recorder and skipping the DAC entirely. So yeah, that's the Penncrest 6520. This was a fun little find. Before I go, I want to thank everybody who subscribed recently. I was honestly overwhelmed at how many positive reactions I received last time. You guys were so kind and I appreciate it immensely, and I will leave you with this. Never let anybody tell you how you should feel about your audio equipment. Audio quality is important, yes, totally. But I believe it's second to how much joy you get from using it. If your grandpa had some cruddy old tape player and you find one just like it at the Goodwill and it sounds all warbly, but every time you play a tape on it, it makes you smile and think of him, that is better than any multi-$1,000 stereo setup can ever hope to be. I truly hope that you have something in your life that makes you happy like that. Stay metal, guys.